are China solar stocks right now. We have Eric Rosenbaum, energy reporter for The Street here. Eric, let's talk about Suntech Power first. The company just landed a big U.S. deal. Tell us about the deal and how big is this for the company and the stock?
Sure. It's big not just for Suntech, but for Chinese solar companies in general. It's the first phase of a big project by Sempra Energy called the Mesquite Project. The Chinese companies haven't made these types of acquisitions by and large. And this Suntech deal really shows that maybe they don't need to. That one model isn't necessarily better than the other or right or wrong, but both models can exist. And with the Chinese vendors typically being lowest cost, not compared to First Solar, but lowest cost compared to the industry and creeping up on First Solar in the lowest cost equation, this just shows that that bidding war for large-scale projects in the U.S. is going to increase between the Chinese and the U.S. companies, the German companies, all the solar players. It's no surprise to anybody, but it was the big headline saying, you know, it's here and now.
And you've mentioned First Solar a bunch of times. That company, that stock just received a downgrade. What's your insight in First Solar right now?
It received not only 1, 2, but 3 downgrades in the past 4 days. Really, though, these downgrades were not negative bets on First Solar. What they were saying was this stock is at a very healthy run-up, and let's just take a breather and consider, are there any near-term catalysts here to move this stock higher based on what's going on in the industry, based on what it has already announced and can possibly announce? So we saw it run up to an 18-month high last week. That was not only solar fundamentals, that was the price of energy, oil going up with the Egypt crisis, and there's this trading link between solar stocks and oil, whereas the oil price rises, people tend to buy solar stocks. Whether it's right or wrong, you look at the charts, it happens. So we saw First Solar hit this 18-month high. When you look at the longer-term chart on First Solar over the past year and a half, once it gets into the 150 to 160 range, it tends to give back a little bit. And that's why we're hearing analysts from Aruga Securities, Kaufman Brothers, and from today from Morgan Stanley say there might be a better entry point for First Solar in the future. It's hard at this point to justify, buying at these levels.
Okay, and I want to mention there's been some talk out of Italy that the government there is potentially planning on slowing its solar market space. Could that have a large effect on these China solar companies?
This is the big risk item. It's been for a couple of months now, especially since January when the Italian government released some data about how quickly solar was growing. It's been very debated, the data, but it just highlighted the issue that Italy may step in to slow down solar. What happened today was there was a conference in Milan where the head of the largest Italian utility was speaking and saying the government was going to propose legislation to more or less move large-scale solar projects to an auction system, meaning lowest bid wins. That's not the way it's done now. Now it's a general feed-in tariff market. And what that auction system would do would put a de facto cap on solar, because you can't have an auction system without having a total pool of projects within that auction that you're auctioning off. What that means for all the companies is all the companies in solar are really relying on Italy to be a huge growth market next year. Germany has been the biggest market for years. Italy is supposed to make up some of that slack. And in the Morgan Stanley downgrade of First Solar today, they talked about the fact that between Germany and Italy, the solar market is really reliant on that for the demand sink for all of its capacity. And there's a lot of concern. One of the reasons they had concern about First Solar and the solar sector generally in that downgrade was because can Italy and can these other markets, make up the slack, especially since Italy is expected to have a feed-in tariff decline. If it doesn't just have a feed-in tariff decline, but it puts in some type of cap on large-scale projects, it really comes down to what they cap it at. If they say 2 gigawatts a year, that could be a surprise to some people, and that could be a negative surprise for Chinese solar companies, for all solar companies.
Okay, thank you so much. Eric Rosenbaum, energy reporter for The Street. If you have questions, make sure to email ChinaWatch@thestreet.com or post them on stockpicker.com, and stay tuned for more of The Street TV.